Mike,
Yeah.
not every game needs to be played at the full player count.
I would argue that no games need to.
And frankly, some games are best at lower player counts, specifically 2. This would be the top 10 games that's best at 2 players specifically.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and indeed, it's time to talk about games that we prefer playing at 2-player. These are not 2-player only games.
No, we'll do a different list for that.
We will do a supplemental list for that at some point in the near future, but these are games that's like, listen, if we're playing this thing, I really kind of mostly want to play it at 2-player and not more or not less.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of reasons of why. One of the big ones you'll see a lot is like time. 2-player games tend to go faster, and we play things mostly at 2-player. So whatever game we have, for the most part, has to be good at 2 for us to want the game, because otherwise it's never gonna get played, right?
Absolutely. So we have 10 awesome games that we prefer to play at 2-player. And in fact, on our Patreon right now, we actually have 10 more games.
Yeah.
So check out a link in the description of this video for our Patreon. But Nick, I think it's time to get to the top 10.
Indeed, let's do it. Our number 10 is our number 10 because we don't even really think of this as a higher than player count game. This is Unmatched.
Yes.
Unmatched is a 2-player game,
It
in
is.
our opinion. You can play it 3-player, you can play it 4-player, you can play like teams, you can play free-for-all. With the new Unmatched, the co-op version, you can play 5 players, and we're like, nope, it's a 2-player game. And to be fair, I think the vast majority of people play this 2-player.
Yeah, I don't think that's like a hot take to say, but it is one thing that I'm like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
This is a 2-player game.
It's not a 2-player only game, but this is a game where you're going to take 2 heroes. Each of you takes a hero, and there are heroes from like Myth and Legend. There's like all these Marvel sets.
History,
History, and you take a hero, and each character is going to have their own unique deck that has a different feel, very much like that character. So like Sinbad moves around, he's really, really fast. King Arthur hits really hard and has like Merlin with him. There's a whole Ghost Riders on his motorcycles. He's flying around all over the place.
There's so many characters at this point, so many heroes. Yeah.
I got how many? Like 40?
30, 40?
Like there's so many.
It's ever expanding as well.
And they're all unique. And it's just a 1v1 battle. You're trying to take out the other person's hero. You're moving around the board, attacking, defending. It's super, super fun, super tactical. All the decks really feel like they're characters.
Yes.
It's just so dang good.
They collect the essence really well of those characters, the things that they're most famous for. So Jekyll and Hyde is always flipping back and forth between the personalities. There's certain upsides to whatever side you're on, but the thing I love about that is like you're not always in control of when you flip, which is very thematic. So it's really cool. The art, of course, there's been several artists who have contributed to Unmatched now.
All of board games.
They're all incredible. And they all sort of fit in the same world despite having their own styles and stuff. So it's something that like every character that comes up is interesting. They are thematically and mechanically well linked together. And they are all compatible with everything else, meaning any character from any set can fight against any other character from any other set on any map that's ever been made. So it's just, there's so much fun stuff to explore.
Now
we can't get enough.
The co-op version where you're going against a villain and you can bring any heroes into that co-op set too. I mean, like, it's nuts. Unmatched is super, super fun. We don't even think about it as anything other than a 2-player game because it's just a 2-player game. So that's why it's number 10. Let's go ahead and get number 9. Number 9, we prefer a 2-player because I just feel like at higher player counts, it just starts kind of bogging down. And this is Great Western Trail.
Yeah, with Great Western Trail, it's the game where you're running cattle to Kansas City and you're trying to get, basically trying to get the right hand of cards.
Yes.
To have a diverse hand of cattle to kind of make the highest possible sale. And so a lot of it comes down to going around and stopping off at different buildings. Now you can of course build your own buildings, and there's several neutral buildings, which are going to be the things that you interact with the most, I'd say, in the game. So for us in a higher player count game, there's likely more and more people building buildings, which just slows down your movement. Now in a 4-player count game, you do start with a higher base movement, but still it can just get in the way of you trying to get to Kansas City, and a lot of buildings are like, you got to pay me some money to pass by here. So you can kind of be run ragged where by the time you get to the building you wanted to get to, you don't have the cash to spend to do the thing you wanted to do. So it's just a little bit more of a kind of a tight resource puzzle in that way.
Yeah, and to me, like, and this is my personal view towards it, but it's just like, I don't find that to be that interesting as from like an interactive standpoint, because you're not really interacting with other players. They're just kind of in your way.
Sure.
Whereas I think Great Western Trail Argentina might be more interesting at higher player counts because at least with the shipping of the cattle and pushing
the timing of
that might make that more interesting. But like in normal Great Western Trail, you're just kind of shipping out cattle, and it kind of doesn't really, you don't have much interaction with that. Maybe Railroads of the North a little bit more, but and on top of that, it also just makes the game longer. Great Western Trail is already not a short short game.
Sure.
You know, at 2 players, it's still probably an hour and a half. With a 4-player game, it's like a 3-hour game. And I'm just like, I just don't need Restoration Trail to be a 3-hour game, especially because like the extra people aren't adding that much to it for me at least.
Yeah.
And so like it just feels like it kind of bogs things down a little bit. It makes the game longer. And then just the extra interaction isn't all that interesting to me. Like the bit of races are trying to go this. It's like, to me, I'm like, I can kind of take it or leave it. So like, I really mostly only want to play it at 2. Although Great Race to Argentina, I do think would be more interesting at a higher player count.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, it works just fine at 4-player in a 4-player game at Great Western Trail. You're like more incentivized to get rid of hazards and take alternate routes to stuff. But in general, I mostly want to get my hand of cattle and get to Kansas City. So putting too many roadblocks that feel a little arbitrary, like you owe me $2 now. I'm like, whatever. I want to get to the thing I want to do on my turn. That's actually the fun part. So,
let me do the stuff I want to do.
So in 2-player game, it feels a little easier to do that without sacrificing like what makes the game great.
Yeah, totally. So that's number 9, Great Western Trail. Love Great Western Trail, but I want to mostly play it at 2.
So number 8 is a game from Board and Dice called Terracotta Army.
Yeah, I just want to do more stuff.
This is definitely a game that falls in the category of like you feel like you get to do more stuff. So
yeah, you do.
In a 2-player version,
so many more points in this one.
Yeah, you get so many more points, and you just have you have more control over what's going on. So in this game, you are building the Terracotta Army. You're putting it into I guess a big mausoleum and stuff, these different clay statues, and you're spending clay and coin as the 2 resource types. And what's really cool is in a 2-player game, you literally have 2 or 3 more actions per round that you get to do.
It's 2,
And so you're just doing a lot more as you go through the game. Which is, I don't know, makes you, I feel like you're interacting with the game more.
To me, it's more satisfying. You're not interacting with other players as much, but you're interacting with the game more. And now some people really want that player interaction. We really like multiplayer solitaire games. So for us, the 2-player not interacting quite as much and getting in each other's way doesn't really bother us, especially because there's still a ton of interaction in the mausoleum.
Yes.
We're still messing with each other.
Position.
We're still jockeying for positions. There's still a ton of player interaction. But you get to do a lot more because the mausoleum, you're filling up with these clay statues. And so you would think in a 2-player game, oh, there's going to be way less statues in there. But there's not. You still end up filling up the whole thing because you're just able to do more.
You have more turns to get stuff done.
You're getting to do more stuff. It's just, if you feel more accomplished. So I really like it at 2. I was watching Amy and Maggie from Thinker Themer, who you should subscribe to. They're amazing.
They're great.
Their review of this, and they really like Terracotta Army, but I'm pretty sure, especially Amy was saying that she likes it much more at 4 because of the interaction with the action selection is way, way higher. But to me, I don't really care about the player interaction that much, and I still think there's plenty of interaction and plenty of like getting each other's way and moving the inspectors and all this kind of stuff to mess with each other in the 2-player game, but I get like double the points. And honestly, I want 1 billion points. I would much rather get 10,000 points than 10 points. Give me 1,000 points for everything I do. It makes my dopamine drip go drip, 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 drip,
and we
drip,
like
drip,
that
drip,
here.
Drip, just like that. I really like Terracotta Army, and 2, you just get, you're playing more game.
You are playing more game. You literally are interacting with the game much more than you are in a 4-player game. And that makes me excited. It's like, wow, I contributed so much. Up to half of this mausoleum is stuff that I made. And that's really exciting.
I think it's great. So Terracotta Armies are number 8, I believe. And really, really fun game. We like it best at 2, though.
Number 7 is a game called 5 Tribes. This is a game, a Mancala-style game, where you are picking up groups of meeples and moving them around and then dropping them off on a final destination, which is going to be where you're going to collect some meeples based on the color of that last meeple you dropped off, and you'll make use of the action on that tile itself. There's a whole bunch of things you can focus on in this game, and for us, that Mancala puzzle is why we like to play it at 2-player. First of all, you can like bid for turn order, which just isn't something we're that interested in. So it's like, whatever. At all. Most of the time we play in 2-player, we just take turns back and forth and ignore that part completely.
And that's a lot of people's like favorite part of the game is like the bidding part, and I just could not care less about that part of the game.
I can see that, and I can appreciate that sometimes, but I'm just not always in the mood for it. If I was playing a 4-player game, I'm absolutely playing with that though, because but
I probably still wouldn't care at all, honestly.
So the main thing though with this game is it's a game that is very much in flux all the time because people are picking up groups of meeples and moving them around and dropping them off, and that might mean that the space you were going to pick up from now has an extra meeple, which means it's going to be harder to get to the destination you wanted to go, or oftentimes now it's impossible to get over here. So many things can change. If you're playing a 4-player game, that when it gets to your turn,
The board's completely different.
There's no point in thinking ahead because it will not matter because the board won't be the same by the time it gets to you. So for us, it really can kind of slow stuff down because I have to wait till my turn starts to really start to think about what I want to do, and you can't pre-plan, and that can just really bog stuff down because this game can induce analysis paralysis in anybody.
Really bad,
because there's a million options of where to pick up and drop off meeples and where do I want to land and what meeple do I want to, what color do I want. These things all matter in this game, which is all the things I love about it. At 2-player, it's a little easier to sort of think of your turn because Nick might be looking over here and I'm thinking about doing something way up here, so it's a little less likely that you're fully in the way or the game doesn't change as much by the time it gets back to you. So things like that for us is just like, it's a little bit easier to just keep it moving. But it's a really great game.
Yeah, it's great. And again, like Mikey said, it's just like by the time it gets down to back to you in a 4-player game, the board is completely different. So you just can't plan ahead. And I like being able to plan ahead in games. And in 5 Tribes, it can still change. So there's still that interaction being like, oh, you just moved the thing I needed that then there because I did this big move. And you're still like, oh, don't see all those blues over there, please. You move there, like, oh, dang, you saw the stuff. So it's like, there's still that interaction and people kind of getting in your way. But you can plan. And then on top of that, it's just faster, which is always nice. This is kind of the reason for all of them. It's also faster.
There's a through line. It's just quicker as well.
Quicker at games.
Quicker is better.
In general, I'd rather play 2 hour-and-a-half games than 1 3-hour game, and this falls into that. 5 Tribes is really great, but you can plan a little bit more in a 2-player game. That's why we like it more. Number 6 kind of falls into the Terracotta Army category. Where
it's on crack.
On crack, and this is Dice Miner. In Dice Miner, in 2 players, you get to play so much more game than you get to play in a 4-player game. So this is a game where you're building out a mountain of dice, and you're putting them in this cool little contraption, and you're drafting these dice. And then you're doing set collection. You're trying to get the white tunnel dice. You're trying to get sets like 1 through 5 in those. You're getting gems would get you points. There are bad dice like dragons or cave-ins, but if you get a pickaxe, you can turn those cave-ins into positive points. Swords and shields turn the dragons into positive points. There's all these different ways to get these points in the game. But the thing is in a 2-player game versus a 4 or even 5-player game, you don't take out any dice.
Yeah, the game does not scale itself at all.
At all. And so the thing is in a 2-player game, it just means you're getting double the dice. And after every round, you keep all the dice that you got, and you just add more dice to the mountain. And so by the end of the game, you have so many dice, and you're getting so many points, and it's just so much more fun, in my opinion, because like 4-player games are great of it, but you just get not nearly as many dice. And 2-player, you're just like, oh, look at all my riches. I have all of these dice. It's just so much more fun because you get to play so much more game.
Yeah, and like it probably makes the game like honestly a little too loose and crazy, but it's a filler game, so I don't care.
I don't care. Exactly.
I just want to get like literally when you go to that last round, you pick up with 2 full hands dice. You're just like, kaboom! Look at what I've assembled, and it's just great. It's really fun to get so many dice. This one purely falls into you will score so many more points in a 2-player game. The winning score will be infinitely higher than a 4-player
You're playing 100%
game.
more game.
Yeah. And it's just like that's great because it's a game that we love. It's really quick and fast and a silly game anyway. It's I just want as many dice as possible. They're very satisfying to collect.
Yeah, they're great. The dice are nice too. It's the best. Yeah. Number 5, we like it 2 players because ultimately it's a race game. And in a 2-player game, the race is stressful because it's so fast.
It's on.
This is Empires of the North.
Empires of the North is a little engine building game where you are going to have a specific faction that is going to be comprised of a deck of cards. And you're going to be drawing out cards, playing those cards, and then activating those cards.
Yeah, all the factions are different.
All the factions are different, meaning they have like a different way that they work. Some of them combo off different cards using resources, and other things you want to go and be sailing a bunch. They all have their own different kind of flavor. And really what it comes down to is like how quickly can you get your cards out and get your engine working in a synergistic way to start pooping out points.
Yeah, pooping.
And it's a race to kind of 25 points to trigger the end game.
Yes.
So for us, when we kind of figured that out, that like that's what this game is it's really trying to see like, can I get this up and running in 3 rounds? And oftentimes like 3 or 4 rounds at the max you can.
Yeah.
It really feels like a race to get this thing going. And so once you're doing that, I want, if it's like that or an actual racing game like Downforce or Heat or something, I want to feel the pressure of time.
Yes.
And in a 4-player game, it just takes a little while to get around to you and things like that. The actions you're doing on turn are not complicated, don't take a while, but it slows everything down. So it takes the wind out of the sails of feeling like that race where I'm like, I really want to get this thing going and get my points going, and I think I'm ahead of everybody. Boom, let me get this thing done.
Yeah, because when we play Empires of the North 2-player, it's like 30 minutes.
It's fast.
It's almost too fast, to the point where I'm almost like, God, I wish we had to go to 35 points because it just ends so quickly, which we could do if we wanted to, but it just ends so quickly that you're just like, oh my gosh. And so it really feels like, man, you got to get this engine going now. And with Empires of the North, for the most part, there's not too much player interaction. You can interact and kind of like essentially be like, you're not allowed to use that card this round. And there are certain factions that are much more heavily into like messing with opponents. But we don't do that too much, and there's just not that much interaction. So having more people, for the most part, just slows the game down and makes it feel like less of a kind of a stressful race, whereas 2-player, it's just like, and it's so much fun because of that. And so Empires of the North is the best at 2 because you just are fighting for your life trying to get out there quick.
That's for real. So yeah, it's one that we really enjoy. I really love trying to be as fast and efficient as I can, and you feel that satisfaction in that 2-player game because it's coming back to your turn every 5 seconds.
Making split,
You're like, boom, I'm doing this action, it goes back to you. Comes back to me, I'm doing this action, boom, it's going back to you. Feels awesome.
Flip-flop.
Number 4 is A Quest for El Dorado. This is a racing game, truly a racing game.
This one actually is,
Deck building game, and in a 2-player game of this, everything is pretty much the same, except for now you have 2 explorers. You have to get both of them to the end of the map in order to be done with the game. And that for us actually presents some really interesting opportunities because every turn you have to decide like, which explorer am I moving right now? How am I focusing? Do I want to keep them balanced? Do I want to get one explorer all the way to the end and then bring the next one up? And oftentimes, like where you are on the map, what you're trying to traverse, and what cards you have, because it's a deck building game, which helps you traverse the different landscapes you see, might dictate, all right, I'm moving my back explorer, going to kind of move them over here. Oh, now they're trying to do this shortcut and they're stuck. I'll move my other explorer around. There's just kind of like a little more to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like ultimately, the game is pretty much the same. You just have 2 explorers. But having the 2 explorers makes you kind of just think about stuff in a different way. And also, it both makes the game harder because you have to now get 2 people to El Dorado. But it also kind of opens up the game a little bit more, makes it a little bit easier because in El Dorado, like if you're trying to take shortcuts and you're going through a really dense part of the jungle, you might not have cards that allow you to move and you can kind of get stuck. And so you're like, okay, if I'm stuck here, oh, but you know what? My back person here is by some water, and I do have a card that has a paddle on it, so I can move them. And so I feel like you have kind of more options to do stuff.
You also have more to do.
But you also have more to do, and I think it's interesting, and it's really, other than that, it plays more or less the same. But just having those 2 people and kind of doing this like forward is really, really interesting. And when we were talking about this list, one of us brought it up. We were kind of like, man, it is so much more interesting at 2. And just really, really like it. And you have more choice in terms of what new cards come out too, because there's a higher likelihood that you're the one who's get to choose them. So you have a little bit more control over what cards are coming in and out of the game. And it's just really, really great at 2. It's great at all player accounts, but at 2, just to have those 2 people makes it just a little bit more interesting for us.
Yeah, there's just a little bit more to think on, and one that we enjoy playing 2-player. I feel like nothing is lost at all. And a little bit is gained even.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Quest for El Dorado, really, really great 2-player game. It's so much fun. That's number 4. Number 3 is Ark Nova. And this is here, 1, because it's faster, but 2, because of the breaks. And you particularly feel very strongly about the breaks in this game.
I do. So
and I think you're right, to be fair.
Yeah, Ark Nova is a game where you're running a zoo and you are you're focusing on a lot of different things. You're trying to build out amazing enclosures on your player board, and then populate them with animals, which increase your appeal, your ticket sales, your income, and everything like that in the game. And there's a lot of things you can do on a turn. And one of them is you can place out, you get a couple workers throughout a game, or up to 3, and you can kind of go onto this association board, the association action, and you can get partnered with sister zoos. You can do studying at institutions and stuff, and you can do conservation projects, which are going to be really kind of a big way to progress the game forward. So the thing is there's this break track. When you place your workers out onto that board, they stay there for a while.
Yeah.
This little break track will, throughout time, kind of go down until you reach the end, and then you have a work break. And you do some different things. You get income and stuff like that. You get your workers back. And for me, this game comes all down to the cadence of that break happening.
Yeah.
As breaks happen, you get an influx of cash, which
of
gives
cash,
you
yeah.
options of stuff to do and cards to buy and play and things like that. Vastly important. You get those workers back. Those workers are the key to progressing the game forward because they often will allow you to do conservation projects. There's 2 tracks you're scoring. The appeal and then the conservation. The conservation, every conservation space covers 3 appeal.
It's much more valuable, yeah.
That is a way to actually move through the track much quicker. And in a 3 or 4 player game, that break track, wherever that sets and when it resets every time, is much further back than in a 2 player game.
Yeah.
So much so that if we're ever playing 4 player, I set it on the 3 player spot anyway.
Yeah.
In a 2 player game, you're getting to those breaks quicker.
Yes.
More often, which means you're getting that money, you're getting those options, you're getting those workers back, which are vitally important for actually progressing the game forward in a significant and meaningful way.
Yeah, totally.
So at 2 player, it's just got a better cadence where we're like kind of here and then we take a little step forward. We're kind of here and we take a nice big step forward. We're kind of here and you just feel that kind of level up and the ramp up of the game much quicker, much more smoothly than a 4 player game where that break might be a while.
It might be a minute, yeah. And you can do, I think it's on the sponsor action, but you can essentially move the break token forward and get money. But it always feels like
a nothing turn.
You do that when you have nothing else you can do, basically. And so no one ever wants to do that. And so there's other ways the break token will move forward, but it's like no one's really doing that. And so it's like, 2 player, it's just when the game is a lot faster in general. And 2, like, you're getting that hit of income, of other stuff. Not to mention, you get your workers back, you can go get more like sister zoos, go study at more universities.
You can do so much more.
Which opens up your game more, right? And so, like, not to mention, you can start donating if you upgrade your association action, so you can get more conservation.
But you got to have those workers.
You can just do more stuff. And so, more frequent breaks is better, and they just happen more often in a 2 player. And a higher player counts, again, move that break thing forward. Just have it happen more often.
Don't place on the 4, place on the 3 at the maximum. It just moves the game along.
Yeah, real talk. Just have breaks happen all the time.
Number 2 is Grand Austria Hotel. This is one that was on our list the first time around when we did this quite a while ago.
Yeah, it's our number 1 last time.
This is a game that is about running a hotel, and you're trying to get guests into your cafe. You're trying to feed those guests the foods and drinks they want. You are trying to prepare rooms for them to stay, and then you're trying to get them up into their room once they're fed and happy, and they give you some bonuses and stuff like that. You're trying to hire staff. That's going to help you get, one-time benefits, permanent discounts, end-game scoring. There's a million things to kind of track and do in this game.
Yeah.
And every round is going to consist of you drafting 2 dice.
Yeah.
You are going to do this in a snake draft. So if I'm the first player, I'm going to draft 1 die. It's going to go to Nick. He's going to draft a die. If there was a 3rd player, they would draft a die. Since they're the last player, they would draft their 2nd die. Nick drafts his die. I finally draft my final die. So this is, I think, a really cool system for working games. Snake drafts are just inherently interesting. But for me, and this is just a little bit of a my brain thing, when I play Grand Austria Hotel, every round, I'm thinking of both of my turns, and they are completely separate turns when you draft those dice. I'm thinking of both my turns in kind of in tandem with each other, of like, what am I trying to do this round? So if I'm the first player, and we're in a 4-player game, I draft a die, Nick takes a turn, person A takes a turn, person B takes 2 turns, and then another turn, and then another turn, it gets back to me, and it just makes everything feel really disjointed where I kind of lose my way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was I trying to do this round? Like, and then also the game state may have changed really quite dramatically in the interim between my 2 turns. And so for me, it's a little harder to kind of get the overarching idea of like the strategy of like, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? And in this game, it's hard to accomplish the stuff you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So in a 2-player game, even with the snake draft, if I'm first player, Nick takes 2 turns, it comes back to me, it's quick enough that I can kind of keep everything in my brain and make sure I'm trying to be as efficient as I can because the game is built so that it's going to be a struggle already. I don't need additional problems.
To say the least, yeah. And it's just snappy. It's like the game state, you use less dice in a 2-player game.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just like, you can plan more. The game state doesn't change as much. And then if you have 2 people who know what they're doing, it's just like you're going boom, boom, done. Boom, boom, next round, boom, boom, next round. You're just going, and it just feels so much smoother, so much better. When I first learned this game, I learned this game a long time ago. We played it 3-player, and they were even saying, like, we'll teach you this game, but they were the ones who said we only ever play this game at 2 because it's so much faster, it's so much better. And they're like, we'll teach you, and we played it was great. And after we played it at 2, I was like, oh yeah, I mostly want to play this game at 2.
Yeah.
It's just better at 2. It just is. It's just straight up better. It was our number 1 last time. It's number 2 here. It's just.
I'm gonna stand by that forever.
Grand Austria Hotel is better at 2.
there's one game that we'd prefer to play at 2-player more, and the reason is because really outside of extreme situations, we're not going to play it at higher than 2.
I won't.
Who has the time? This is Boone Lake.
Yeah, Boone Lake's just too long with more. It's just I'll tell you right now, like, if I knew someone was playing with a third person who was really decisive.
I know they're quick.
Maybe at 3, but real talk, I don't think I'll ever play this game not at 2 players because it just would be too long. Yeah. At 2 players, this game is still 2 hours. It's just a long game. At 3 and 4, it's like a 4-hour game. I mean, it is. And I just don't need this game to be that long. But we love Boone Lake. Boone Lake is this game where you come across this like uninhabited land. You're putting out like settlements and cows and stuff, kind of like you're on the frontier and stuff like that.
Taming the land. Yeah,
you're taming the land.
Exactly right.
Oh, this area is beautiful. Let's put our settlements and stuff down here. It's great. And you're getting these cards, and you're playing cards, and you get these kind of like special abilities with levers that you can do, and you're unlocking stuff from your board. It's really, really great. But what it comes down to is every turn, the active player is going to choose an action. They get to do kind of a main action, but then everyone else also gets to do a follow action. So it's cool when you're the first player because you essentially get to do 2 things. You get to do the main action and then the follow action, and everyone else gets to do that as well, for the most part. The thing is, with more people, that just means more people are doing stuff, which means more thinking time, more time of just like, oh, what should I do here? And it just adds more time. The cool thing about it is the follow mechanics, for the most part, everyone can do simultaneously, which is useful, but just when you have more minds working, it's a big game, it's a relatively heavy game, it just means more and more and more time, and it just starts to drag out. And in a 2-player game, we can go kind of back and forth pretty quick, and it's still a 2-hour game, but it's a 2-hour game where you feel like you're constantly moving. You're like, okay, I'm doing this. Okay, now you chose this. Okay, I still get to do this. Okay, while you're doing that, I'll do this part over here. Then boom, now it's my turn. I choose this one. You're moving down this river. It's really great. But in a higher player count game, it just will start to slow down. And it's like that 2 hours in Boone Lake feels very fast.
Yes.
But the 3 to 4 hours in Boone Lake will not feel that. It just gets too long. And so like Boone Lake, I will never play it other than 2. I just won't do it. I just won't do it. Absolutely
Sorry
not.
for anyone who's interested.
No.
We're not going to do it.
Answer's no, unless one of us is not there. Then we'll play it.
Please, and I'd love to play that. Boone Lake just comes in that category of like, and I guess you could say that's a flaw of the game or whatever, but we really do love the game so much. We just don't love it 4 hours worth, but we really love it 2 hours worth.
Yes.
At 2 specifically.
But yeah, this again, we're constantly just like, nope.
No, can't do it.
We won't play it.
Can't do it. But it is a really great game that we think is underrated. So that's our list. Those are 10 games that we prefer to play at the 2-player count.
Yes.
Even though you could play more, sometimes you could play fewer. I want it at 2.
Indeed. And down in the comments, let us know what are some games that you think are best at 2 players, or that you would just at least prefer at 2 players. What do you think about our list? Do you think we're right? Do you think we're wrong? Let us know down in the comments. Again, over on our Patreon, we're going to have 10 more games that we would prefer at 2-player. Make sure to check it out and be a patron today if you want to see that.
That's who you're seeing scrolling by here, by the way. Thank you all our patrons and stuff. Get your name on that list by becoming a patron today.
Indeed. And I think that's going to be it. Until next time, my name's Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph. We'll see you later, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching that top 10. Let us know down in the comments below what games you think play best at 2 and what other top 10s you'd like to see us do. And make sure to check out the other top 10s on the right side of your screen. Have a wonderful day. You're beautiful. We love you.